Welcome to The Line. As we just heard, Judge Sarah Singleton ruled last week that New Mexico is not adequately funding schools and meeting the needs of all students. This week's Line panelists are ready to give their take on the ruling and what might happen when a new governor takes office in January. I'm joined at the table by Merritt Allen of Vox Optima LLC. Dan McKay's here. He's a reporter with the Albuquerque Journal. Andy Lyman is with us. He's with the New Mexico Political Report. And the new Director of State Operations for Common Cause, Vicki Harrison. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Really happy. And your heir apparent is the perfect person, too.
Yes, Heather Ferguson is going to do an awesome job.
Absolutely. Well deserved. Good for you. Now, I'm going to stay with you, Vic. This ruling is going to change the conversation about education in New Mexico. I'm guessing it's going to, because we've got a lot of things we got to parse through here. But just simply starting there, is this the thing that has Judge Singleton just laid on us the roadmap ahead that's going to uncork money, a different attitude, all that kind of stuff? What do you think of this?
Well, I think she didn't unleash a roadmap because she didn't tell us what to do specifically to get there. And by getting there, I mean getting our schools in a better place where our students are getting a better education.
Right.
I mean, this was a huge lawsuit. I think it is going to change things. I mean, we've been talking about education. I've been lobbying in Santa Fe for 25 years. I don't remember a single session where education was not one of the priorities.
Right.
And I think that when we look at all the statistics around the number of students in poverty in this state, I don't think people understand how much. 71% is huge. And then we've got our children with disabilities, our Native American students, we've got students who are learning English, and you add all that in. I think back to my grandma who, was a school teacher. And she didn't have to deal with all of the other social issues and things that people need. Now, I appreciate some of the ideas that have already been floated around having real services for students, after school programs, before school programs, making sure, we've done so much to make sure our kids are fed. Let's make sure they really are fed. They're fed throughout the summer. Let's really talk about year-round school. I mean, I'm not a parent, but if I were a parent, I cannot imagine how you do it. Because what do you do in the summer? You suddenly have a new expense, something happens, there's teachers. I just think that there is a lot, and the new governor this is going to have to be a priority. Which is going to be interesting because with a new governor, there's already 40 other priorities that legislators are talking about for a 60-day session. And I've never seen more than 5 priorities possibly make it through.
It's a big number, 5. I mean, give me a break. Dan, interesting, I want to touch on, amplify what Vic just mentioned. She mentioned almost 72% of New Mexico students are low income, 14% English language learners, 15% students with disabilities, 11% are Native Americans. And the question here is, that's roughly, when you lump it all together with overlap, that's about 3/4 of our students. And so what's seemingly coming down the pike here from Judge Singleton is you're talking a fairly good financial nut to turn something like this around or to get stuff in motion. Let's start to talk about that. Is this a good time to be talking about millions of dollars? I mean, our economy is doing better, but your sense of it, the upcoming conversation.
There's probably never really a good time for the legislature to take on a new expense, but it certainly is better now than it would have been 2 years ago. The state is just coming off an enormous financial crunch that damaged its credit rating and depleted reserves. Things have turned around financially, so there is a little more breathing room. One of the big fears that legislators have is that their revenue is so volatile. So if they make a commitment to expanding ongoing expenses, then they're going to have to carry them through in future years, even if oil and gas isn't bringing in the same amount of money. So it could be that they'll search for different kinds of revenue sources. They've talked about tax reform, changing where the state gets its money, maybe even a tax increase, withdrawing more from the permanent fund. I don't know that there's a leading contender at this point, but it's going to be a pretty vigorous discussion.
But at the end of the day, everything you just ticked off, that hasn't been previously talked about. This is my point. This seems to have uncorked something here. That people are, Andy, are now starting to talk about different ideas to pay for things in ways that we hadn't before. But on top of all that, we've got this current administration appealing this situation. Let's talk about that as well. I'm a little confused what they're actually appealing here. The constitutional right for kids to have an education? I mean, that doesn't seem like something, a winning appeal. What's your sense of it, what they're trying to do here? What's the point they're trying to make here?
I would hate to try to guess what their motivation is, but I think when you see just court proceedings like this, a lot of times I see people appeal cases just because they want to get the final say in it. Sometimes it might be a legal issue where we have to take it. It's just what our duty is as the state to keep doing this. I mean, it's up to, of course, Michelle Lujan Grisham said she wouldn't, she would stop the appeal. I think that's their prerogative, but sometimes you want to take it as far as you can go and get a final decision, because right now there seems to be a lot of ambiguity about what is expected.
That's right. That's a good point there. Mayor, pick up on that if you would. Again, where's this administration coming from, and wouldn't it be better for them to accept the ruling, take these last few bits of their term, and just start the process to get the next person a running start? In a perfect world, that would work, but we're not in a perfect world, are we?
Well, and I guess the issue I have with this entire lawsuit is with the decades of inertia we have with regard to our struggling schools, how do we expect the same people and the same organizations to actually do something about it?
Right.
And the reaction is, well, we'll just throw more money at it. Well, what if we spent the money we had more intelligently? What if we looked at overhead costs versus classroom costs? And there's the permanent fund already funds 25% of our schools, and we need that. We need that stability. We spent half of our state budget on education and come up with the same terrible results. So, I guess. To me, I think Andy's point that the appeal may just be a way to have the last word.
Right.
It doesn't matter, and it doesn't fix the crisis we've been in for decades.
But what if, I have to stay with you, Merritt, on this, and what if the answer actually is more money? Isn't it worth taking a chance? I mean, I realize, past is not a guarantee of future performance, all that kind of a thing. But what if we're just at the threshold of just enough money to put the right things in motion? Would that not be an okay result?
But what would those metrics be? We've been in constant education reform since at least 2002. We went to Common Cause, and then we went to Park, and we're not seeing the results. So I guess I'm kind of scratching my head. If there is money to put toward it, what's the right program? What's the right answer? I don't know, because we've thrown money at this thing for decades with abysmal results that just continue the cycle of poverty, because we do not prepare our children for the workforce.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
again.
and I
Please.
think that, we've talked about with any issue, find somebody who's doing it well and talk to them.
Good point.
I mean, this is not rocket science, okay? I mean, there are school districts, whether it's in New Mexico or elsewhere, that are getting better results. Talk to them. Figure out, what are you doing to make a difference? It's the whole appreciative inquiry. Take the best of everything and create a program. And we have been talking about this forever. We spend a lot of money on education. What are the fixes? Where is the money going? And why are students not doing better?
Right.
Because maybe they need more than just the education when they get there.
Right.
If we've got so many in poverty, again, are they eating before they show up? Are they getting what they need? What's happening on the weekends?
That's right.
Are we, are the services there? And, we're spending 25% from the land grant fund, but, again, I love the rainy day. I love to hold on to it. I appreciate that. But when you are last in the nation on pretty much everything, and you have one of the stoutest, flushest, fattest land grant funds in the country.
And growing. That's
Come
right.
on, people.
That's right.
Seriously, dribble out a little bit. Put a time limit on it. We'll dribble out a little bit for 3 years. See what happens.
Well, this could be part of the conversation, Andy, that, again, some new ideas might surface here, because when you really think about it, with this ruling, the judge has laid down a very aggressive timeline here. We should talk about that, and whether it's just doable or not. But perhaps this is the thing to get people spurred forward, this kind of difficult, challenging timeline.
Yeah, I think it's going to force the state to get creative with the money that they do have. An increase of money could help, but I think there's going to be concerns from the legislature, certain legislators saying, okay, more money's fine, but show us how you're going to use it.
Right.
Don't use it wisely and spend it on things to make sure that the kids get those resources they need instead of I don't know, something that doesn't pertain directly to the kids.
If I could just comment on Vicki's point about taking innovations that work, I think you're absolutely right on that, and we have those in our state. We have school districts who do better than others, even when they're right next door. Look at people who want their kids moved to Rio Rancho. Rio Rancho is a boom town because of their schools. in Grant County. There are two school systems, one of which covers a much more impoverished population. Cobre schools blow the rest of the state out of the water consistently because they innovate and they seek out grants. They seek out new ways to do the same thing better. And can we take those best practices?
Yes, yes. I mean, we're doing it right here.
And is that
I live
system,
in Rio Rancho. I should know that.
There you go.
That's what happens
Exactly.
when you don't have kids.
Well, you know, I appreciate your point, Merritt, but is there something being left off here that you know, maybe needs to put on the table? It takes a combination of things to get moving forward, certainly, but I'm back on this money thing again. What Judge Singleton has said is that, again, just to cover all bases here, we're talking about constitutional rights to education. And it's going to cost us money, and we have to get ready for this fact. I mean, are you comfortable with a certain amount, or is a certain amount over you're not comfortable with? I mean,
What if we just were willing to make some kind of bold decisions like, let's end the Pearson contract for Park right now and put all that money
Right.
where we think it needs to go.
Right.
APS,
I hear cheering from across the television.
you're kind of a bloated nightmare. You
Yes.
need to cut 10% of your overhead costs right now, and we're going to take that. We're going to cut your funding, and we're putting it to the rest of the state for these programs that we need.
That's right.
I think there's the ability to spend money more intelligently than we have been.
You know, Dan, maybe Stewart had an interesting quote. It said, "I'm thankful the judge is telling us to get our acts together." I mean, I love that. It's very simple. I ask once again, in our legislature, it's going to take leadership. Someone's going to have to step forward and say, okay, this is the law of the land now. Now what do we do? Let's make this right. We'll see what happens, eh? Yeah.
I think you're right that the ruling definitely changes the landscape a little bit. I think legislators have been waiting for this ruling, and it's been on their mind as a potential large expense. And so I think it certainly does. I think it certainly does change the political landscape. There could be some lawmakers might be more willing to raise taxes or increase spending than
Right.
they would be otherwise.
That's
but
right.
There's going to be a really intense debate along the lines of what Vicki and Merritt have talked about, which is making sure the money is spent effectively. You know, school districts shouldn't look at this as a potential bonanza for them. I mean, they're going to get extra scrutiny about administrative expenses and things like that.
That's right. That's right.
And I will, if I can just touch on one more point.
Please.
The legislature has studied a lot of different programs and found some things that really are working in New Mexico. And there's broad agreement from Republicans and Democrats on programs that extend the school year, like Vicki mentioned, programs that prepare children to be ready for kindergarten, pre-K, and early childhood programs. Those have gotten really glowing reviews across the aisle, and so it could be that that programs like that emerge as part of the answer.
Right. Just about a minute, Vic, and I wish we had an hour to do this subject, but I'm looking at this interesting thing from the judge that she says that the access to technology in rural districts, and she also suggested that the state teacher evaluation system may be contributing to the lower quality of teachers in high-need schools. That's a very interesting premise that she's mentioning.
Yes.
That what we have in place now is actually turns out to be a negative, possibly, in what we're
The
doing.
testing is ridiculous. Park needs to go. All these things. Again, we've done this forever in this country. We've educated children in public schools. What
Right.
did we do before all this bloated testing and teacher evaluations?
Right.
You know, a teacher evaluation should be some administrator at the end of the year observing a class. Talking to the students, you know, is your teacher any good? I mean, what did you do this year? Instead of like this check off of how every student
right.
did,
That's
which
right.
a teacher has no control over.
Let me give you another
And
one.
Technology.
That's right, please.
The technology is huge.
That's right.
I mean, this is such an issue in New Mexico. We've talked about it before, and we had a hearing with the FCC commissioner out here a couple of years ago, and this student from Roswell talking about them all doing their homework in the McDonald's parking lot because they didn't have access to the internet. And there was 2 computers in school to do and now they do it all their homework is on a computer. So
It's going to be interesting,
it's going to
isn't
be
it?
very interesting. There's a lot of pieces in that lawsuit.
Let me tell you, finish with you, Andy, on this one. I'm telling you right now, the tech thing alone, we better be ready to write a check. That, you know, the judge has laid it down, what's been obvious to everyone in the state for years, but here it is almost codified, saying you got to get after this, you know.
Another thing that goes along with that is, and they've been talking about this for years in Santa Fe, is broadband across the state.
Yes.
Sometimes the infrastructure is just not there. You
That's
can
right.
Put a bunch of money into technology. Those computers are almost useless if you can't
right.
connect to the
Half
Absolutely.
$500,000 a mile to
It's a
drag fiber.
democracy
That's right.
issue.
Yeah.
People have to have access to the internet and use.
It's going to be a huge cost, yeah.
Absolutely. We'll have to wrap that up there. And when we come back to the line, we'll continue a conversation about cuts to UNM sports programs.